It's morning to me. It's 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I'm so excited to be with my YouTube community. And I hope you all are staying well and that you're ready to learn about passive aggressive behaviors that I think are very dangerous. I also want to invite you all to ask any questions, especially about passive aggressiveness within your relationship, but it can be anything. During this 15 minutes, I want to give you as much free guidance as I can. I am a licensed professional counselor. I understand that going to therapy is difficult financially for some of you, and it's time consuming. And if you're working, it's really hard to find the time and make the effort to go in. Plus, who do you go to talk to? So that's another reason I am so pumped that you guys are subscribers and that you're joining me now. So the two types of passive aggressive behavior that I think are the most dangerous are ignoring your partner and the silent treatment. Why do I say this? Because both have huge ramifications for deteriorating the trust within the relationship. When you ignore your partner, and it's one reason I made a video out of this, I think it is so important. It's you need to know that when you ignore them, you have no idea the reaction that it will have on them. Why can't you really tell that? Because how a person reacts to that has a lot to do with how they were raised. If they came from a neglectful home or a chaotic home, or maybe a home where no one cared about them, no one was there to validate their feelings, maybe they weren't allowed to have feelings, it's going to have a huge effect on how they take it within the relationship when you ignore them. And what's even more important is when you ignore them, many times that's a trigger for people. People who have lived in bad relationships before, or they've had relationships where they couldn't trust their partner, have basically been inundated with being ignored. And I don't care why you ignore them. Maybe you're just watching the game on TV, or you're looking at something on your phone, or you're distracted with something else. When you ignore your partner, if it's not intentional, it's you need to tell them, listen, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do this. If it is intentional, I'm going to encourage you to find another way to get your needs, your feelings across. And I'm going to encourage you to use your words instead of these passive aggressive techniques. How many of you are in a relationship where the silent treatment is used? The silent treatment is a little bit different. It's a little bit crueler almost than being ignored. The silent treatment is a control measure. The person, your partner who is using the silent treatment is mad at you, and they are using a tit for tat method to show you, to make you suffer that they were hurt by something you said. Now, obviously, when two mature adults would have a relationship, they would be able to tell their partner when they were upset about something. Something happened in the relationship, maybe you guys had a disagreement. A mature relationship would look like, hey, listen, what you said really hurt my feelings, and I need to talk to you about it. Maybe not right now, but I do want to talk about it because I feel like it's getting in the way with me trusting you. Whatever that is at that time, it's important that you understand that in a relationship, passive aggressiveness tactics like the silent treatment make your partner feel alone. And when your partner feels alone, as a form of survival, they look for others. First of all, they're going to come back and try to appease you with it. They're going to try to tell you, oh, you know what? It's okay. I'm sorry. They're going to start apologizing to you and everything. And you're probably inside getting angrier. The reason you're getting angrier is you were hurt. And when they tell you now how sorry they are, it isn't enough. So at that point, you're going to punish them more. I've had clients who grew up as children in families where there was a lot of silent treatment and ignoring. They have underlying issues of depression, anxiety. They get very resentful in their relationships. They don't trust their partner. And you may say, I can't believe these passive aggressive behaviors would cause this well into adulthood. Believe it. In fact, if you're with someone and you're using ignoring or the silent treatment as a form of your communication, you didn't just come up with that. That was taught to you, that was modeled for you. And the reason you hung on to it is you saw the effectiveness of it. More than likely in your parents' or your grandparents' marriage, the reason you continue to model it is because it looks like a nice way to express your anger or your disappointment, but there's nothing nice about it. Your partner deserves to know where you are. They cannot read your mind. And when you force them into something like you're ignoring them or you're not replying back, you're making them angry. And when you have two angry people, nothing good comes out of that. As a matter of fact, what usually ends up happening is you're taking the relationship further away. As a therapist, one thing we look for, and one thing I really look for, is how a couple handles conflict. And the moment they start saying, well, one of the partners will say, well, she ignores me, or he gives me the silent treatment, I know that this relationship does not have a strong foundation because both people are uncomfortable at that point with saying what really matters. Because if you're living with someone who does the silent treatment or they ignore you, one thing I can tell you for sure. So it looks like I just got a comment. So should you communicate even if they're out of reach, I think that said? Yes, you should. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to flip back and forth because I don't have my reading glasses on and I set up another monitor, but I'm really not able to see. But yes, you should communicate it even if they're not there. What you should say is my feelings are hurt. I was devastated, or the way this fight ended, I felt betrayed. I felt like I didn't trust you. I felt like whatever your truth was, you weren't able to tell me directly. More than anything, what I want to encourage you to do today is to at least voice it. If you're really upset with your partner, so upset that you want to punish them with the silent treatment, I'm hoping that my words today are at least going to help you say to your partner, I am so upset, or I am so disappointed. I know I need to talk to you about this, but I'm so overwhelmed with feeling. Now, that's being a mature adult, and that's someone who is being honest with what they're feeling. They're advocating their feelings, but at the same time, they're validating, I'm really upset right now, and I'm not sure that I can tell you how I really feel deep inside being this upset. That is actually really a great comeback, because what happens is if you were mentored to use a silent treatment or a passive aggressive form of relating, then most likely the people that that modeled that for you were afraid of their own anger. And don't forget, like your grandparents and your parents were raised by parents, and maybe even you were, where being angry was not something you could say. It wasn't acceptable. If you grew up in a real religious home, your parents might have said, that's not nice. We don't talk like that here. And meanwhile, if you're really angry, go talk to God or something like that. Okay, well, talking to God is a good idea, but when you're angry, your feelings need to be validated. I see your anger. I hear your anger. I need to talk to you about my anger I'm feeling. When you start doing that, guess what happens? The anger usually starts minimizing, and you're moving out of that passive aggressive form of relaying or communicating, and you're moving into a more mature form of owning the feeling. So many things that I talk about are attunement, having awareness of what you're feeling inside. Have you ever been so overwhelmed with anger or frustration or just disappointment, disgust at your partner, but yet you couldn't say it because you were trained that you had to hold it in or ignore it or whatever? It doesn't go away. It's like a something rotten inside. It goes all over. And if you're passive aggressive, you start doing all kinds of actions. You'll start kicking the door, slamming the door, screaming at somebody who doesn't deserve it. Take it out on somebody else. But for most of the relationships I'm working with, they do things like ignore their partner in front of other people. They just won't give them eye contact, will completely ignore them. And that is not okay. In fact, that will basically destroy your relationship. Much better you tell your partner, I'm so upset. I cannot even tell you how hurt I am. If you can at least say that, and your partner can come back and validate that, I see you're upset. I'm sorry I hurt you. That alone is not going to be enough. You're going to have to tell them what you need them to change or what they need to apologize for that hurt you so badly. Because remember, when a partner says, man, I'm really sorry, or, that wasn't my intention, that is not an apology. An apology is, I am so sorry I hurt you. I love you. You'd be the last person I would want to hurt. What can I change that's going to make you feel better or less hurt? That's an apology. In a healthy relationship, that's how we do it. And if you're passive aggressive, my guess is you've been modeled that form of behavior and you've never really taken the chance, and it is a big, bold risk, to try it. But until you try it and until you own that, you won't be able to just do it. So you have to practice. I think a lot of times when people are dating, these forms of communication begin. And then what happens is they get scared. They get scared like, if I tell them, then that's a whole history. Like that's the last 3 months this has been going on. And your partner's going to say, have you been lying to me? So what I'm going to encourage you at this point is, rather than to get wrapped up in the lie, because they're saying that because they're getting defensive, what you would say is, I was afraid that my truth would push you away from me. And I don't want that. I love you, or I care about you. I care about the relationship we're forming. And therefore, I was willing to sit on that feeling I was feeling, but I'm not okay with it anymore. That is your truth, and that is valid, and I think that's mature. If I were seeing you in a session, I would 100% validate that and stand up to that. We're almost out of time, and if any of you have any comments or questions, I'd really like you to ask them now, because I'm running out of time, and I don't want to go too far over, because then people just don't have time. And I know how that is. So especially on YouTube, if you have a question, you can always leave it. And if you have a comment that you're watching this later and you would really like to talk about it, you can always do it then. What if they blame it on being introverted? Great question, but not true. People who are introverted can still be honest. Don't ever let anybody tell you the reason they lie or they use passive aggressive forms is because they're shy or introverted. I don't care how shy you are, and I don't care how introverted you are. That is not correlated with honesty. Expressing yourself is expressing your truth. So much so that I say that someone who would be passive aggressive with me, and when we first got married, my hubby was, I would accuse them of betrayal. I would tell him, you're betraying my faith. You're betraying my love in you. I feel like I'm honest with you, and if you can't be honest with me, then I have no idea who I married. And that was enough to start him thinking. Although sometimes some things are so innate that people do it anyway. He grew up in a home where there was a lot of anger. And what ended up happening, he got fearful of expressing anger. He didn't like it. And so what he would do is he would try more passive, gentle ways. You can be gentle and be honest. You can be gentle by saying, this feedback may sound harsh, but it is my truth, and this is what I feel. You can preface it like that if you're a little bit nervous. Why do men edit stories they share? I would rather hear the whole truth and be heard. What if, and then I missed the last one, sorry about that. If you, I don't know if all men edit stories or shorten them. I think people who basically are wired to problem solve very quickly, they're always trying to edit things so that they basically can get to the end. What I see more in couple counseling is that some people say, I'm a big picture person. So I'm a big picture person, so I get to the end of the story and I give you the big picture. The big picture is never the details. And in cases of where you're trying to hide stuff, the devil's in the detail. And that's why you may think that you're lying or evasive or not completely honest when you don't tell the story completely as it was verbalized. This is a problem I see a lot of times. And I will say this, if you're dishonest, then you have more to gain with telling the big picture. If you're honest, then the detail is going to be more important to you because you understand the detail is where many things can hide and lie and be covered over. So if you feel like your partner edits things or just gives you little bits and pieces, my guess off the top of my head is they're not comfortable with the truth. And didn't hear the story, but I've seen that in clients when they like to edit things. Usually it's a little bit dishonest. Oh, you guys, I hope I get these. What if both partners are passive aggressive and one part seemed to make any effort? Okay, if you're both passive aggressive, then it's important you understand that the truth of this relationship is not being dealt with. So what I would do is both of you, go to a therapist and start practicing honest. If you're passive aggressive, then I'm not sure how it worked to even get the relationship going. In the details, this makes sense. Thank you. Okay. I think what's important is if you're both passive aggressive, one person has to take the lead here and then both people have to practice. But do not use the cover that you're introverted, because I know a lot of introverted people who are very good at expressing themselves. Basically, passive aggressive is a childlike form of expressing anger or hurt. And so if you tell me you're both that way, then I'm going to say you both have a childlike pattern of expressing the truth. And it's time that you both experiment and try adult-like patterns where you are direct. When you first begin being direct, it sometimes comes across as terse or blunt or a little bit stronger than it should. You can taper that as you go on, maybe even preface it with your partner. Okay, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to start saying directly what I feel. It may come across as harsh, and I don't mean to hurt you, and then tell them. That's kind of what we did to help my hubby start getting more outward. Because when you're raised in a chaotic family or a family where there is a lot of anger, let me tell you, kids grow up afraid, and they're afraid to tell the truth a lot of times. And everything important about establishing trust is in the process of establishing honesty. So let me just say that. So you guys, I love doing these. I hope they're helpful to you. If you have topics you want to do, please let me know. God willing, I'm going to try and do one next week. I'm not 100% sure, so don't hold me to it, but really hope you all have an awesome day and just stay in love with the idea of gaining more self-awareness and being the best partner you can be. Thank you, Lee, by the way. How to shut it off.